Started with a strange man named Andy. On his first day in prison, he was well-dressed but looked frail and vulnerable.
Other inmates mocked him as part of their initiation ritual. The old-timer, Red, bet with his friends on which newcomer would break first. With years of experience, he bet 10 cigarettes on Andy losing. Soon, the warden emerged from the darkness to introduce himself, just as a nervous inmate farted. The hot-tempered guard, Harry, scolded him for disrespect. The guard hit him with a stick. I believe in two things, discipline and the Bible.
Trust in the Lord. Your backside is mine. Welcome to Shawshank. On the first night, newcomers often break down, which is what the old-timers bet on. The noise brought the first night. Red didn't expect Andy to be so resilient, even more surprising, and not to cause trouble, as he was being watched by the sisters' gang. Andy promised to stay out of trouble, and they agreed on a price for the hammer. This close encounter changed Red's initial impression of a small hammer. It seemed the worry was unnecessary. Digging a tunnel with such a small hammer would take at least 60 years. But over the next 2 years, Andy didn't have it easy, often covered in bruises. Though Andy never said who did it, Red knew it was the sisters' gang. The more Andy resisted, the more excited they got. And everyone was stunned. Andy's brave actions quickly paid off. On the day of completion, everyone was on the roof drinking cold beer. Of course, all this was thanks to Andy.
Strange look on his face.
A smile. This was the first time Andy fought for everyone's freedom. Brave and wise, he impressed Red. Not long after, Andy found Red again, saying he needed to read a Hayworth movie poster. Red agreed without hesitation, but the sisters' gang became more rampant. Seeing Andy's defiance, they were furious and started beating him. Andy was severely injured and lay in the infirmary for 30 days, but the gang leader didn't know that Andy was now untouchable. Guard Harry privately taught him a lesson, leaving him in a vegetative state, eventually sent away in a wheelchair. When Andy recovered, he found Red had sent him the poster, with a meaningful smile. Sometime later, the warden came to Andy's cell under the guise of inspection. They searched thoroughly, but when the warden saw Andy's Bible, he thought Andy was accepting God's baptism, often claiming to. Days later, Andy was reprimanded by the warden. He gave Andy a job change wasn't for library management. Soon, a guard politely asked Andy for tax help. Quickly, Andy's role expanded to annually dedicating 30 days to solving various financial issues. Years passed, and the old manager was released after 50 years. Isolated from the world, the rapid development outside terrified him. Despite working earnestly, he was often scolded. The helplessness of life confused him. 50 years of prison habits left him sleepless, often waking from nightmares. Unable to bear it, he ended his life. Red and Andy were heartbroken, feeling deep regret. Empathetic, Red told.
Everyone, when you hate him, you...
We'll learn. Andy continued writing weekly letters until one day, 6 years later, his persistence paid off. Joe Hui sent Andy was thrilled. He picked one and played it on the record player. Beautiful melodies filled the air. Andy suddenly had an idea, locked the office door, and broadcasted the music throughout the prison. All inmates paused to listen. The music was... Feeling the warden's anger, sensing a threat, Andy quickly turned it off. He first acted righteously, then deliberately turned up the volume, enraging the warden. 10 years without stopping. Finally, Joe Hui couldn't resist, and funds arrived quickly. The expansion was in full swing. Andy knew knowledge changes fate, so he hurriedly acquired more second-hand books. This caused a sensation, but the warden took all the credit, claiming it was his educational reform to the media, basking in the limelight. But behind the scenes, he continued embezzling, with Andy laundering the money. They worked late into the night. The warden hid the ledger behind. Well, safe, but he never imagined there was a more mysterious safe behind Andy's cell wall. Red was worried about Andy, advising him not to be tricked by the warden. If any department found a clue, it would be bad. But Andy was confident in his expertise. He explained that no one could trace his accounts because the money laundering accounts were virtual. Red, like me, didn't understand but admired Andy's wisdom and foresight. That day, a new batch of inmates arrived, especially a young man who looked like Elvis, causing Andy to explode. His name was Tom, a lively troublemaker, a VIP member of big prisons. Everyone quickly bonded over his stories, but when Tom learned his wife had a daughter, he decided to turn over a new leaf and be a good father.
He approached Andy, wanting to get a high school diploma, and he had to start teaching him from the basics. Tom was smart and learned quickly, eventually passing the exam.
One day, he accidentally heard from Red
In his case, but the warden didn't agree.
He still expected Andy to keep helping him. Andy pleaded, promising not to say anything about this place once he got out. This completely angered the warden. Not only did he drive Andy away, but he also ordered him to be locked in solitary. The day Andy was in solitary, Tom's exam results came out, and he got his diploma. But before he could celebrate, the warden called him out that night. This reformed young man couldn't imagine he was facing a roof that his rekindled hope was completely shattered by the warden. He didn't want to help the warden anymore. Warden threatened him. 2 months later, Andy was finally released. He looked pale and worried. Red was concerned about his mental state, but Andy talked about a beautiful life after release. Andy, somewhat neurotic, inexplicably said he wanted to go to Mexico, find a beach, buy a small boat, and fish carefree. Red said he was starting to feel life outside. Clearly he was institutionalized too. He advised his friend to be realistic.
Wake up, stop daydreaming. Yeah, right, so it is. It's down there. And I'm in here. I guess it comes down to a simple choice.
After speaking, he got up to leave, but suddenly Andy stopped and told Red that not far from here, there was a farm with a long stone wall.
Just under an old oak tree to the north, Andy said seriously.
Red was puzzled, but Andy mysteriously left. As Red suspected, Andy was not in his right mind. He asked a friend for a 2-meter-long rope.
Red worried Andy might do something rash. That night, after lights out, Andy took the rope from under his pillow.
Red couldn't sleep, and the next morning, when Andy didn't come out, the guard angrily checked, finding the cell empty. Meanwhile, the warden opened a shoebox, finding Andy's old shoes. Suddenly the alarm sounded. Andy had vanished. They heard a clear sound behind the poster. The warden tore it down, revealing a large hole. Andy had discovered the wall's loose soil after getting the small hammer. With his geology knowledge, he had a bold idea. Every night, he chipped away at the wall, hiding the debris in his pockets and scattering it during walks. After Tom's murder, he decided to switch the warden's ledger with a fake. The night before, evidence in a plastic bag, crawled into the tunnel and reached the pipe. He had memorized the route, and during a thunderstorm, he broke through the old pipe and crawled through the 500-yard stench. After a long crawl, he emerged free in a stormy night. He had prepared for this moment for 20 years. The next morning, a refreshed Andy, with a new identity, went to the bank and withdrew the fortune he had accumulated over the years using his fictional identity. He also sent evidence of the warden's crimes to the press. The news spread quickly across the state. Hearing the sirens approaching, the warden realized he had been tricked. He opened the safe, finding Andy's Bible instead of his ledger. As Andy had said, the path to salvation was in the Bible. With irrefutable evidence, Guard Harry was speechless, and the warden, in despair, loaded a revolver and ended his sinful life with a shot. A few days later, Red received a package from Andy, urging him to keep hope alive and never give up, as they had a promise. Andy's escape miracle spread throughout the prison. Red finally got parole after 40 years. Could he adapt to life outside? Many things still confused him, but remembering his promise to Andy, he took a bus to the farm, found the old oak tree, and under a unique stone, he found Andy's secret. Some money and a letter. Dear Red.
If you're reading this, you've gotten out. And if you've come this far, maybe you're willing to come a little further. Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I will be hoping that this letter finds you.
Red was more determined to live on. He packed his bags and headed towards the place of hope in his heart.